How dare you serve black passengers bananas while white folks get real food? You think we're monkeys? The flight attendant's face went pale as 9-year-old Maya Richardson stood up in her first-class seat and said calmly, "My grandfather owns 22% of this airline. You just made the biggest mistake of your life." If you want to see how a little girl took down a racist flight attendant and made aviation history, subscribe right now and watch until the end. This story will leave you speechless. Drop your city in the comments so I can see how far this story travels. This is the story of Maya Richardson, and trust me, you've never heard anything like it. Patricia Lawson grabbed a banana from her cart and slammed it onto Dorothy Williams' tray table. No words, no eye contact. Just a banana and a cold smile before moving to the next row. Dorothy blinked. 71 years old, retired school teacher, 43 years of shaping young minds. And this woman just threw a banana at her like she was feeding an animal at the zoo. "Excuse me, miss, is there more coming?" Patricia kept walking. "Miss, I asked you a question." Nothing. Dorothy's hands started trembling. Not from age, from something she hadn't felt this strongly since 1963, when a white store owner spat in her face for trying on a hat. Row 24. Marcus Thompson watched Patricia approach. He straightened his blazer. Keynote speaker at tomorrow's accounting conference. $400 for this ticket. Same price everyone else paid. A banana landed on his tray. Marcus looked at it. Then he looked across the aisle. White businessman, full meal tray, salmon, vegetables, roll, dessert. What the hell? Patricia was already gone. "Hey, I'm talking to you." She didn't turn around. Marcus grabbed his banana and held it up. "Is this a joke? Someone tell me this is a joke." The passenger next to him, a young black woman in scrubs, stared at her own tray. Another banana. Just one banana, sitting there like an insult wrapped in yellow. Dr. Keisha Brooks had been awake for 72 hours. She'd saved 3 children's lives this week. Tiny hearts, delicate surgeries, miracles performed with steady hands and absolute focus. Now those steady hands were shaking. "Excuse me," her voice came out hoarse. "There's been a mistake." Patricia glanced back with that practiced smile. "No mistake, ma'am. That's what's available for this section." "Oh, but he has a full meal." Keisha pointed at the white passenger 2 rows up. "I can see it from here." "Different allocation, limited inventory." "Limited? There are dozens of meals on that cart. I can see them." Patricia's smile tightened. "Ma'am, I don't make the policies. I just follow them." She moved on. Keisha pulled out her phone, started taking pictures. The banana on her tray, the meal trays visible on white passengers' tables. Evidence, documentation. Because she knew nobody would believe this without proof. Row 27. Pastor James Mitchell had his Bible open to Psalms. 40 years of preaching love and forgiveness. 40 years of teaching his congregation to turn the other cheek. The banana hit his tray with a soft thud. He closed his eyes. "Lord," he prayed silently, "I have spent my entire life teaching people to respond to hatred with love. But right now, in this moment, what I am feeling is not love. What I am feeling is rage. Pure rage. Help me, Lord, because I don't know if I can contain it." His hands wouldn't stop trembling. Row 29. Darnell Carter saw Patricia coming and sat up straight. IT director, problem solver, 6 figures and a corner office because he didn't take garbage from anyone. The banana landed on his tray. "Nope," he stood up immediately. 6'3", built like a linebacker. "Nope, no, this is not happening." Patricia turned. "Sir, please remain seated." "Remain seated? You just gave me a banana." A single banana. "While I'm watching white passengers eat salmon 10 feet away." "Sir, lower your voice." "Lower my voice?" Darnell's laugh was sharp and bitter. "Lady, I paid $400 for this ticket. $400. And you hand me a banana like I'm some kind of—" He stopped himself. The word hung in the air, unspoken, but understood. Patricia's eyes narrowed. "Sir, this is your final warning. Sit down or I'll involve the captain." "Involve him, please. I'd love to explain to the captain why every black passenger on this plane got a banana while white passengers got real food. That's not what happened." "Really?" Darnell pointed down the aisle. "Look around. Go ahead. Look." Patricia didn't look, but everyone else did. Row after row after row. Black passengers holding bananas. Just bananas, nothing else. And scattered among them, white passengers finishing their meals. Salmon bones, empty vegetable dishes, crumpled napkins from bread rolls. The evidence was everywhere. Marcus Thompson stood up. "He's right. Every single one of us got bananas. Every single black passenger." Dorothy Williams found her voice. "I thought I was imagining it. I thought maybe I was confused. But it's real. It's actually real." Dr. Keisha Brooks held up her phone. "I've been documenting everything. Timestamps, photos, all of it." Pastor Mitchell opened his eyes. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of 4 decades in the pulpit.
"What you have done here today is an abomination. You have looked at God's children and decided they were less than human, and there will be a reckoning."
More passengers were standing now, more voices joining. "This is discrimination. She did this on purpose. Everybody take pictures. Get this on video. Someone call the news." Patricia's composure cracked. Her face flushed red. Sweat appeared on her forehead. "Everyone needs to calm down right now. This is a federal aircraft. I am a senior flight attendant with 18 years of experience. If this disturbance continues, I will have no choice but to report a security threat and request law enforcement meet this aircraft upon landing." The cabin went quiet. Law enforcement. Those 2 words landed like a bomb. Every black passenger understood what they meant. Every single one of them had seen the news, had watched the videos, had lived with the knowledge that encounters with law enforcement didn't always end well for people who looked like them. Patricia saw the fear flicker across their faces, and she smiled. "That's better. Now everyone sit down and—" "No." The voice came from row 22. Dorothy Williams, 71 years old, shaking but standing. "I'm not sitting down, I'm not being quiet, and I'm not scared of your threats." Patricia's smile vanished. "Ma'am, I strongly advise you to. I marched in Birmingham in 1963. I stood in front of police dogs and fire hoses. I watched my friends get beaten bloody for trying to vote. And I didn't back down then. I'm certainly not backing down now." She held up her banana. "You gave me this. You looked at my face, you saw my skin, and you decided I didn't deserve a real meal. You decided I was less than human. And now you're threatening to have me arrested for objecting?" Her voice rose. "I am 71 years old. I have never been arrested in my life, never caused trouble, never raised my voice on an airplane. But today I'm raising my voice. Today I'm causing trouble. Because what you did is wrong. It's evil, and I will not be silent about it." The cabin erupted, passengers on their feet, phones raised, voices overlapping. "Tell her, Grandma! That's right. We're not backing down. This is America. We have rights." Patricia looked around wildly. Her control was slipping. 18 years of authority, 18 years of power, crumbling in front of her. "Everyone sit down, now. This is a direct order." Nobody sat. Darnell Carter pushed into the aisle. "You don't give orders. You're a flight attendant, not a cop. And right now, you're a flight attendant who just committed a federal crime." "I did no such thing." "Really?" Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, discrimination based on race in programs receiving federal assistance. Airlines receive federal funding. What you did is illegal, and I guarantee you there are at least 50 lawyers who'd love to take this case. Patricia's face went white. Marcus Thompson moved closer. "I'm a CPA. I've testified in court a dozen times. I know how evidence works. And right now, there are 19 witnesses and probably 100 photographs documenting exactly what you did." Dr. Keisha Brooks held up her phone. "I've got everything. Timestamps show you served white passengers full meals at 3:47 p.m. Timestamps show you served us bananas at 4:12 p.m. Same cart, same flight, same price tickets, different treatment." Pastor Mitchell's voice cut through the noise. "Woman, I have prayed for your soul, but make no mistake, prayers will not save you from earthly consequences. What you have done will follow you. It will define you, and it will destroy you." Patricia stumbled backward. Her heel caught on the beverage cart. She grabbed a seat back to steady herself. Behind her, Jennifer Chen stood frozen. Jennifer was 34, third year with the airline. She'd been told to stay quiet, to follow orders, to let Patricia handle things. But Patricia had told her things before the service started, specific things, instructions about which rows, which passengers, which trays. "I'll handle the meal distribution. You just pour drinks. Don't ask questions." Jennifer had nodded. She'd seen Patricia sorting the cart, separating items, organizing in a way that didn't match standard procedure. She'd understood what was happening, and she'd said nothing. Now she stood, watching 19 people demand justice for something she could have prevented. 19 people who'd been humiliated because she was too scared to speak up. Her hands were shaking. Her stomach churned. The guilt was suffocating. Patricia spun toward her. "Jennifer, tell them this girl is lying. Tell them it was inventory issues, supply chain problems. Tell them." Every eye in the cabin turned to Jennifer. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. Jennifer, now!" Jennifer looked at Patricia, then at the passengers, at Dorothy, 71 years old, standing despite her age, fighting despite her fear, at Marcus and Keisha and Pastor Mitchell and Darnell, at all of them. She thought about her job, her apartment, her car payment, everything she'd lose if she spoke up. Then she thought about what she'd lose if she didn't. "She told me which rows to skip." The words came out barely above a whisper. Patricia's face contorted. "What did you say?" "She told me." Jennifer's voice grew stronger. "Before we started service, she pointed at passengers, told me exactly who should get bananas, said it was policy. But it wasn't policy. I knew it wasn't. I knew what she was doing, and I didn't stop her." "Shut up! Shut up right now!" I should have said something. Tears streamed down Jennifer's face. I should have refused. I was scared. Scared of her. Scared of losing my job. But I'm more scared of living with this. I'm more scared of becoming someone who watches people get hurt and does nothing. Patricia lunged at her. "You're finished. Do you hear me? I will personally destroy your career. You'll never work for any airline ever again." "That's enough." The voice was small but strong, clear as a bell. Everyone turned. Maya Richardson stood at the curtain separating first class from economy. 9 years old, pink sneakers, braids with little beads that clicked softly when she moved. She'd been reading in seat 3A when the shouting started. Her cousin Derek was asleep beside her, exhausted from law school finals. So Maya had come to investigate alone. Now she stood taking in the scene. The bananas on tray tables, the meal trays in front of white passengers, the flight attendant with mascara running down her face, the other passengers standing, phones raised, voices angry. Maya had been taught to observe before acting, her grandfather's lesson. Understand the situation before you enter it. Knowledge is power. She understood this situation perfectly. Patricia spotted her and sneered. "Little girl, go back to first class. This doesn't concern you." Maya walked forward into economy. "I think it does." "Excuse me?" "I saw what you did." Maya gestured at the rows of passengers. "Every black person got a banana. Every white person got a real meal. That's not an accident. That's not inventory issues. That's racism." Patricia's laugh was sharp and dismissive. "What do you know about racism? You're a child." "I know what my grandfather taught me. I know what I learned in school. I know what I read in my books." Maya kept walking forward. "And I know what I just saw with my own eyes." Your eyes are mistaken. Now go back to your seat Before you what? Give me a banana too? Patricia's face flushed. I walked past the galley on my way here. Maya's voice was steady. I saw 17 meal trays sitting in the heated compartment. 17 full meals that you didn't serve. 19 black passengers got bananas. 17 extra meals. You didn't run out. You chose not to give them food. The cabin went dead silent. Patricia's mouth opened and closed. No words came out. Darnell Carter let out a long whistle. Well, well, well. Little sister just did your job for you, counselor. He looked at Marcus. That's evidence. That's intent. Marcus nodded slowly. Premeditation. She planned this. Dorothy Williams stared at Maya with something like wonder. Child, how old are you? 9, ma'am. 9 years old. Dorothy shook her head. 9 years old, and you see clearer than most adults I know. Patricia recovered her voice. It came out high and strained. This is ridiculous. I'm not going to be lectured by a child. I've been with this airline for 18 years. 18 years of perfect performance reviews. And you think some little girl's going to... My grandfather is Charles Richardson. Patricia stopped mid-sentence. Charles Richardson III, Maya continued. He owns 22% of this airline. He sits on the board of directors. He's been an investor for 12 years. The color drained from Patricia's face. He also runs the Richardson Foundation. They donated $6 million to civil rights organizations last year. And he has 52 lawyers who only handle discrimination cases. They've won over $180 million in settlements. Patricia grabbed a seat back. Her knees looked like they might buckle. I'm going to call him now, and I'm going to tell him exactly what happened on this flight. And then he's going to call the airline. And then he's going to call his lawyers. And then he's going to call the news. Maya pulled out her phone. Patricia's voice came out strangled. Wait, let's talk about this. There's been a misunderstanding. I can explain. You had your chance to explain. Maya unlocked her phone. You told these passengers to file a complaint after landing. You told them it was policy. You told them to sit down and be quiet. You threatened to have them arrested. She found her grandfather's contact. Now I'm going to tell someone who can actually do something about it. Please, the word came out as a whisper. Please, I have a family, a pension, 18 years. Those passengers have families too. Maya's finger hovered over the call button. Dr. Brooks over there saves children's lives. Mrs. Williams taught school for 43 years. Pastor Mitchell has spent his whole life helping people. And you gave them bananas. You told them that's all they deserve. She pressed call. The phone rang once. Twice. A deep voice answered. Maya, is everything all right? Hi, Grandpa, I'm fine, but we have a situation on flight DL892. Patricia started crying, deep, heaving sobs. The mask she'd worn for 18 years shattered completely. Tell me what happened, baby girl. Maya told him everything, every detail, every row, every name she'd learned in the past few minutes. Dorothy Williams, row 22. Marcus Thompson, row 24. Dr. Keisha Brooks, row 25. Pastor James Mitchell, row 27. Darnell Carter, row 29. And 14 others she pointed to as she spoke, asking their names, adding them to the record. When she finished, there was a long pause. Then Charles Richardson's voice changed. It became colder, harder. The voice of a man who'd built a billion-dollar empire by never backing down from a fight. Put the flight attendant on the phone. Maya held out the phone to Patricia. My grandfather wants to speak with you. Patricia's hand shook as she took it. Hello? Is this Patricia Lawson? Yes, sir, I can explain. I didn't ask for an explanation. I asked for confirmation. Are you Patricia Lawson, senior flight attendant, 18 years with Delta Connection Airlines? Yes. Good. Now I'm going to ask you one question, one simple question, and I want you to think very carefully before you answer, because everything you say right now is being recorded and will be reviewed by my legal team within the hour. Patricia's breathing became ragged. Did you deliberately serve bananas to black passengers while serving full meals to white passengers on this flight? The inventory. There were logistics. Yes or no, Ms. Lawson? Silence stretched. Ms. Lawson, I'm waiting. Patricia looked around the cabin. At the passengers who'd witnessed everything. At Jennifer, who'd confirmed her instructions. At the evidence documented on dozens of phones. At the 9-year-old girl who just dismantled every excuse she could possibly make. 18 years of hiding. 18 years of pretending. 18 years of waiting for the chance to show who she really was. And now it was over. Yes. The word fell into the silence like a stone into still water. Thank you for your honesty, Ms. Lawson. Now let me tell you exactly what's going to happen next. Charles Richardson's voice remained calm, controlled, terrifying in its restraint. In approximately 2 minutes, I'm going to call Captain Rodriguez in the cockpit and inform him of the situation. You will be removed from service immediately and confined for the remainder of this flight. Please, when we land in Los Angeles, federal authorities will be waiting. Department of Transportation, FBI Civil Rights Division. They will escort you off this aircraft in handcuffs. Oh, God. You will face federal charges for violating Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. You will face additional charges for discrimination in federally funded transportation. And depending on what my lawyers find during discovery, you may face charges for creating a hostile environment that endangered passenger safety. Patricia was sobbing now, ugly, heaving sounds. I'm also going to file a lawsuit, not for $10 million, for $12 million. One for each of the passengers you discriminated against, plus additional damages for emotional distress, public humiliation, and civil rights violations. I'll lose everything. You should have thought about that before you decided 19 human beings deserve to be treated like animals. Charles paused. And finally, I'm going to call every media contact I have. CNN, NBC, the New York Times, the Washington Post. By tomorrow morning, your name and your face will be on every news channel in America. Flight DL892 will be famous, and you will be infamous. Patricia dropped the phone. It clattered to the floor. She stood there swaying, mascara streaming down her face. 18 years of carefully constructed authority completely destroyed. Maya picked up the phone. Grandpa? I'm here, baby girl. What should we do now? First, I want you to tell those passengers that justice is coming. Every single one of them. Charles Richardson gives his word. What was done to them today will not stand. Maya looked at the faces around her, the tears, the anger, the shock, the hope beginning to dawn. My grandfather says justice is coming, she announced. He gives his word. What happened to you today will not stand. Dorothy Williams let out a sound that was half sob, half prayer. Marcus Thompson nodded slowly, his jaw finally unclenching. Doctor. Keisha Brooks lowered her phone and let herself breathe for the first time in what felt like hours. Pastor Mitchell raised his hands toward heaven. Thank you, Lord. Thank you. Darnell Carter pumped his fist. That's what I'm talking about. Second, Charles continued through the phone, I want you to find the junior flight attendant. Jennifer, you said her name was? Yes, Grandpa. Put her on. Maya walked to Jennifer, who was still standing by her beverage cart, tears streaming down her face. My grandfather wants to talk to you. Jennifer took the phone with trembling hands. Hello? Ms. Chen, my granddaughter told me what you did. You spoke up when staying silent would have been easier. You told the truth when lying would have protected your career. That took courage. I should have done it sooner. I should have stopped her before. You found your voice when it mattered. That's what counts. Charles paused. Now, I need you to do something. Anything. In the galley, there are 17 meal trays that were deliberately withheld from passengers. I want you to serve those meals immediately. Every black passenger who received a banana gets a full meal, right now. Can you do that? Yes, sir. Good. And Ms. Chen, When this plane lands, my legal team is going to want to speak with you. Not as a defendant, as a witness. If you face any retaliation for what you did today, you contact me directly. My granddaughter will give you the number. Understood? Understood. Then go feed those people. They've been hungry long enough. Jennifer handed the phone back to Maya and walked to the galley with purpose she hadn't felt in 3 years of working this job. The captain's voice crackled over the intercom moments later. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Rodriguez. I've been informed of a serious situation in the economy cabin. Please remain calm. The situation is being addressed. But it was already being addressed. Jennifer emerged from the galley pushing a cart loaded with meal trays. Real meals. Salmon, vegetables, rolls, dessert. She stopped at row 22 first. Dorothy Williams sat there, still holding her banana, face wet with tears. Mrs. Williams, Jennifer said softly, I am so sorry for what happened to you today. Please allow me to serve you the meal you should have received. She placed the tray gently on Dorothy's table. Dorothy looked at the food, then at Jennifer, then at Maya standing in the aisle, watching. You know something? Dorothy's voice was thick with emotion. I've lived a long time, seen a lot of things, good things and bad things. And today, I saw both. She reached out and squeezed Jennifer's hand. The bad thing was what that woman did to us. The good thing is watching people choose to make it right. That little girl over there, you, everyone who stood up. She picked up her fork. That's what I'm going to remember about today, not the banana, not the hate. I'm going to remember the people who fought back. Jennifer moved to the next row, tears flowing freely now. Marcus Thompson accepted his meal with a nod. We'll be talking to your lawyers, all of us, whatever it takes to make sure this never happens again. Doctor. Keisha Brooks took her tray and immediately began eating. I've been awake for 3 days. I haven't had a real meal in 36 hours. And that woman gave me a banana. She shook her head. A banana. Pastor Mitchell received his meal with clasped hands. Bless this food. Bless the child who fought for us. And Lord, bless even the woman who wronged us, for she needs your grace more than any of us. Darnell Carter grabbed his tray and held it up like a trophy. This is what $400 buys. This, not a banana. He started eating with enthusiasm. And when that lawsuit hits, I'm getting a lot more than $400 back. One by one, Jennifer served all 19 passengers. And one by one, they ate. At the back of the plane, Patricia Lawson had been escorted to the crew rest area by a male flight attendant who'd emerged from first class at the captain's orders. She sat on the small jump seat, hands shaking, face blotchy, mumbling to herself. 18 years. 18 years. How did this happen? How did a child... 18 years. In 2 hours, federal agents would meet the aircraft. In 2 hours, she would be escorted off in handcuffs. In 2 hours, her picture would be on every news channel in America. But she didn't know that yet. All she knew was that her world was ending, and a 9-year-old girl had pushed the first domino. Maya stood in the economy cabin, surrounded by passengers who were finally eating real meals. Dorothy insisted she sit in the empty seat beside her. You belong with us now, child. Come sit with your people. So Maya sat. A flight attendant from first class appeared at her elbow. Miss Richardson, would you like to return to your seat? Your cousin is still sleeping. Let him sleep. Maya picked up a roll from Dorothy's tray. Dorothy smiled and pushed the whole basket toward her. I'm fine, right here. The flight attendant hesitated, clearly unsure what protocol applied when a 9-year-old had just exposed a federal crime and initiated a $12 million lawsuit. I'll bring you a meal then. Thank you. Darnell Carter leaned across the aisle. Hey, little sister, that was the most impressive thing I've ever seen a kid do. And I've got 2 daughters. They're going to hear about you tonight. I just did what my grandfather taught me. Well, your grandfather taught you well. Marcus Thompson raised his glass of water in a toast. To Maya Richardson, 9 years old, took down a racist at 30,000 feet. May we all have half her courage. The passengers who heard him raised their glasses too. To Maya, to justice, to standing up. Dorothy put her arm around Maya's shoulders. You know what you did today, child? I just told the truth. No, Dorothy shook her head. You changed things. For us, for everyone who comes after us. You showed people that one person can make a difference. One small, brave person who refuses to be silent. Pastor Mitchell spoke from 2 rows back. The Bible tells us that a little child shall lead them. Today, I saw that scripture made flesh. Maya felt her face grow warm. I'm not trying to lead anyone. I just saw something wrong, and I couldn't stay quiet. That's exactly what leading is, Dr. Keisha Brooks said. Seeing wrong and speaking up. Most people see wrong and look away. You didn't look away. Maya thought about that as she ate her dinner, surrounded by 19 strangers who didn't feel like strangers anymore. She thought about her grandfather's words, about choosing discomfort over silence, about speaking up even when it was hard, about refusing to accept injustice just because fighting it was difficult. She thought about Patricia Lawson, sobbing in the back of the plane, watching her career and freedom disappear. She thought about Jennifer Chen, finally finding her courage, serving meals with tears streaming down her face. She thought about Dorothy Williams, 71 years old, standing up to threats because she'd been standing up her whole life. And she thought about what would happen when they landed. The news crews, the lawyers, the investigation, the lawsuit, the trial. Everything was about to change. For Patricia, for the 19 passengers, for Jennifer, for the airline, for Maya. The captain's voice came over the intercom again. Ladies and gentlemen, we're beginning our descent into Los Angeles. Please return to your seats and fasten your seatbelts. Maya looked out the window at the lights below. Somewhere down there, her grandfather was making phone calls. Lawyers were preparing documents. News producers were clearing schedules. Federal agents were receiving orders. Somewhere down there, justice was waiting. Dorothy squeezed her hand. Whatever happens next, remember this moment. Remember what you did and how it felt. Because there will be times in your life when speaking up feels impossible, when staying silent seems easier, when the cost of courage seems too high. Maya looked at her. And in those moments, Dorothy continued, you remember this plane. You remember these faces. You remember that you were 9 years old and you stood up to evil and you won. Maya squeezed back. I'll remember. Good. Dorothy smiled through her tears. Now finish your dinner. It's going to be a long night. Maya ate her salmon as the plane descended toward Los Angeles. Behind her, 19 passengers who'd been humiliated were finally fed. In front of her, a new chapter of her life was about to begin. And in the back of the plane, Patricia Lawson's old life was already over. The wheels touched down at 6:47 p.m. Pacific Time. Nothing would ever be the same again. The wheels hit the runway at exactly 6:47 p.m. Pacific Time. Maya felt the jolt through her seat. Dorothy's hand tightened around hers. Neither of them spoke. Neither of them needed to. Through the windows, the Los Angeles evening spread out in a sea of lights. But this wasn't a normal arrival. This wasn't passengers gathering their bags and shuffling toward the exit. This was something else entirely. Captain Rodriguez's voice came over the intercom, tight and controlled. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been directed to a remote parking position. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened until further notice. Thank you for your patience. Murmurs rippled through the cabin. Passengers craned their necks, trying to see through the small windows. Remote parking position. That meant something was wrong. That meant something big was happening. Darnell Carter pressed his face against the window. Holy hell. What? Marcus Thompson leaned across him. What do you see? Black SUVs. At least 6 of them. Government plates. Darnell pulled back, eyes wide. And there's more coming. Dorothy squeezed Maya's hand tighter. Child, what did your grandfather do? Maya looked out her own window. The SUVs were lined up on the tarmac like a military convoy. Men and women in dark suits stood beside them, badges glinting under the floodlights. Everything he promised, Maya said quietly. He did everything he promised. The plane rolled to a stop. For a moment, nothing happened. The engines wound down. The cabin lights flickered. Passengers sat frozen in their seats, waiting, watching, barely breathing. Then the forward door opened. 3 people stepped aboard, 2 men and 1 woman, dark suits, serious faces, credentials already in hand. The woman spoke first, her voice carrying through the silent cabin. "I'm Special Agent Diane Morrison, FBI Civil Rights Division. I'm looking for Patricia Lawson." Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The male flight attendant who'd been monitoring Patricia stepped forward from the back of the plane. "She's in the crew rest area. I'll take you to her." Agent Morrison nodded. "Thank you." She turned to address the passengers. "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain in your seats. We'll be conducting interviews with several of you before you're allowed to deplane. This is a federal investigation. Your cooperation is required and appreciated." She walked down the aisle, her 2 colleagues following. Passengers watched in stunned silence as they passed. Dorothy Williams wiped tears from her cheeks. They came. They actually came. Dr. Keisha Brooks was shaking. "I've never seen anything like this. Federal agents on a plane for what happened to us." Pastor Mitchell clasped his hands together. "The Lord works in mysterious ways, but today he worked through a child and her grandfather." Darnell Carter was already on his phone. "Nobody's going to believe this. I'm posting everything." "Don't." Marcus Thompson grabbed his arm. "Not yet. Let the feds do their job first. We don't want to compromise the case." Darnell hesitated, then nodded. You're right. He put the phone down but kept it ready. "But the second they say we can talk, I'm telling everybody." At the back of the plane, the crew rest area door opened. Patricia Lawson emerged. She wasn't walking on her own. Agent Morrison had 1 arm. A male agent had the other. And behind her back, her wrists were bound in handcuffs. Real handcuffs. Federal handcuffs. The cabin went completely silent as they walked her forward. Patricia's face was swollen from crying. Her mascara had carved black rivers down her cheeks. Her uniform was wrinkled and disheveled. She looked nothing like the cold, composed flight attendant who'd served bananas with a smile just 2 hours ago. She looked broken. As they passed row 22, Dorothy Williams stood up. Patricia flinched, expecting anger, expecting shouting, expecting the kind of confrontation she deserved. But Dorothy didn't shout. She just looked at Patricia with those 71-year-old eyes that had seen so much hatred in their lifetime, eyes that had watched crosses burn, eyes that had seen friends beaten, eyes that had witnessed the best and worst of humanity. "I hope you find peace someday," Dorothy said quietly. "I truly do, because carrying that much hate must be exhausting." Patricia's face crumpled. A fresh wave of sobs shook her body. Agent Morrison kept walking, kept moving her toward the exit. As they passed row 24, Marcus Thompson spoke. 18 years. You had 18 years to be a decent human being, and you chose this. Row 25. Dr. Keisha Brooks held up her phone. "I documented everything, every banana, every timestamp. Your lawyers are going to have a very bad day." Row 27. Pastor Mitchell made the sign of the cross. "God forgives, ma'am, but the law doesn't." Row 29. Darnell Carter just laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "Enjoy federal prison. I hear the food there is terrible. But hey, at least it won't be bananas." Patricia stumbled. The agents caught her, kept her moving. And then she passed row 22 again, where Maya Richardson still sat beside Dorothy Williams. Patricia stopped. The agents tried to keep her moving, but she planted her feet, turned her head, locked eyes with the 9-year-old girl who had destroyed her life. "You," Patricia whispered, "you ruined everything." Maya didn't flinch, didn't look away, didn't show any fear. "No, ma'am," Maya said calmly. "You ruined everything. I just made sure people knew about it." Agent Morrison tugged Patricia's arm. "Let's go." They moved her toward the exit. down the stairs, across the tarmac, into one of the waiting SUVs. The door closed, the SUV drove away, and Patricia Lawson was gone. The cabin exhaled. Passengers who'd been holding their breath finally let go. Some cried, some laughed, some just sat in stunned silence, trying to process what they'd just witnessed. Dorothy pulled Maya into a hug. "You did that, child. You made that happen." "My grandfather made it happen." "Your grandfather has money and lawyers, but you had courage. That's what started all of this. Your courage." Jennifer Chen appeared in the aisle, eyes red from crying. "They want to interview all of us, the passengers who received bananas. They're setting up in the terminal. But," she looked at Maya, "they want to talk to you first." Maya nodded and stood up. Dorothy held on to her hand. "You want me to come with you?" "No, ma'am. I'll be okay." Maya squeezed her hand one more time. "But thank you for everything." She walked up the aisle toward the exit, passing row after row of passengers who watched her with something like awe. This 9-year-old girl who had done what most adults couldn't, who had spoken up when speaking up mattered most. At the door, she paused and looked back. 19 faces looked back at her. 19 people who'd been humiliated, degraded, treated as less than human. 19 people who were now going to see justice. "It's going to be okay," Maya said. "I promise." Then she stepped off the plane. The tarmac was chaos. More SUVs had arrived. News vans were visible in the distance, held back by airport security, but already setting up cameras. Somewhere, a helicopter circled overhead. A woman in a sharp gray suit approached Maya immediately. "Miss Richardson, I'm Sandra Wells, senior counsel for your grandfather's legal team. Mr. Richardson is waiting for you in the terminal. Please follow me." Maya followed. They walked past federal agents coordinating with airport officials, past airline executives who looked like they were going to be sick, past security personnel trying to maintain order in what was rapidly becoming the biggest news story of the year. Inside the terminal, a private room had been set up. 2 more lawyers sat at a table with laptops open. A man Maya didn't recognize was speaking urgently into a phone. And in the center of it all, standing tall despite his 73 years, was Charles Richardson III. "Grandpa!" Maya ran to him. He dropped to one knee and caught her in his arms, holding her tight against his chest. "Baby girl." His voice was thick with emotion. "I am so proud of you, so incredibly proud. I did what you taught me." "You did more than that." He pulled back to look at her face. "You changed the world today. Do you understand that? What you did on that plane is going to change how airlines treat passengers forever." "I just couldn't stay quiet. I saw what she was doing and I couldn't just sit there." Charles smiled. It was the smile he gave her when she brought home perfect grades, when she won her spelling bees, when she made him proud in all the ways a grandfather dreams of. "That's exactly right," he said. "You couldn't stay quiet. And because you couldn't stay quiet, 19 people are going to see justice. An airline is going to change its policies. And a racist who spent 18 years hiding her hatred is going to face the consequences of her actions." He stood up, keeping one hand on her shoulder. "Now, the FBI wants to interview you. I'll be in the room the whole time. So will Sandra. You just tell them exactly what you saw, exactly what you heard, exactly what happened. Can you do that?" "Yes, sir." "That's my girl." The interview lasted 45 minutes. Maya sat in a comfortable chair across from Agent Morrison and another agent named Thompson. Her grandfather sat beside her, silent but present. Sandra Wells took notes on a legal pad. Maya told them everything. How she'd heard shouting from first class, how she'd gotten up to investigate despite the other flight attendant trying to stop her, how she'd walked through the economy cabin and seen the bananas on every black passenger's tray, how she'd counted the meal trays in the galley and realized Patricia had enough food for everyone but chose not to serve it. She told them about confronting Patricia, about the flight attendant's dismissive responses, about Jennifer Chen finally finding her courage and admitting the truth. She told them about the phone call with her grandfather, about Patricia's admission, about everything. Agent Morrison listened without interrupting. When Maya finished, the agent leaned forward. Miss Richardson, I've been with the FBI for 16 years. I've investigated civil rights violations across this country. I've seen courage in many forms. She paused. What you did today was one of the bravest things I've ever witnessed. You should be very proud of yourself. I just told the truth. Telling the truth when powerful people want you to stay quiet is the very definition of courage. Agent Morrison stood and extended her hand. Thank you for your statement. We'll be in touch if we need anything else. Maya shook her hand. What's going to happen to Patricia? She'll be arraigned tomorrow morning. Federal charges for civil rights violations. Based on the evidence and witness statements, she's looking at significant prison time. What about the other passengers, the ones she gave bananas to? We're interviewing all of them tonight. Their statements will be part of the case. Agent Morrison glanced at Charles. Your grandfather's legal team has already filed a civil lawsuit. I expect that will move quickly, given the circumstances. Charles nodded. $12 million. And we're pushing for policy changes across the entire airline industry. I hope you get them. Agent Morrison gathered her files. This case is going to make headlines. Big headlines. Be prepared for that. She left the room. Charles turned to Maya. Are you hungry? Tired? Do you need anything? I'm okay. Maya looked toward the window where she could see the terminal building, and beyond it, the plane still parked on the tarmac. What about the other passengers? Dorothy and Marcus and everyone. They're being interviewed one by one. My team is providing legal support to anyone who wants it. We're also arranging hotel rooms for tonight, since most of them missed their connections. Can I see them before we leave? Charles smiled. Of course you can. He led her out of the private room and down a corridor to a larger conference area. Inside, the 19 passengers from the plane sat in clusters, some giving statements to agents, others talking quietly among themselves, others just sitting in shell-shocked silence. When Maya walked in, the room fell quiet. Then Dorothy Williams pushed herself up from her chair, crossed the room, and pulled Maya into another fierce hug. There she is. There's our hero. The words broke something open in the room. Suddenly, everyone was standing, moving toward Maya, reaching out to touch her shoulder or shake her hand or simply be near her. Thank you, baby girl. You saved us. God bless you, child. We'll never forget what you did. Marcus Thompson knelt down to her eye level. I have a daughter. She's 7. I'm going to tell her about you tonight. I'm going to tell her that when she sees something wrong, she speaks up, just like Maya Richardson. Dr. Keisha Brooks was crying openly now. I save children's lives for a living. That's my job. But today, a child saved us. The irony is not lost on me. Pastor Mitchell placed his hand gently on Maya's head. The Bible speaks of David and Goliath, of a small shepherd boy who defeated a giant with nothing but a stone and his faith. Today, I witnessed that story again. A small girl with nothing but her voice and her courage defeated a giant of hatred. Darnell Carter pumped his fist. Little sister, when this lawsuit settles and I get my money, I'm setting up a scholarship in your name. The Maya Richardson Courage Scholarship for kids who stand up to bullies. Maya felt overwhelmed. These were adults, important adults, doctors and pastors and business people, and they were thanking her, a 9-year-old girl in pink sneakers who just couldn't stay quiet. I didn't do anything special, she said softly. I just did what my grandfather taught me. Dorothy cupped Maya's face in her weathered hands. Child, listen to me. I have lived 71 years. I have seen hatred and I have seen love. I have seen cowardice and I have seen courage. And what you did today was special. Don't let anyone tell you different. Don't let anyone minimize what you did. You changed things. You changed us. You changed the world. Maya felt tears prick her eyes for the first time since this all began. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you all. Charles stepped forward, placing his hand on Maya's shoulder. I hate to break this up, but my granddaughter has had a very long day. We need to get her home." Dorothy nodded, wiping her eyes. Of course, of course." She looked at Maya one more time. "You remember what I told you on the plane? Remember this moment." "That's right. Remember it forever." Maya nodded. "I will." Charles guided her toward the door, but before they left, he turned back to address the room. "I want all of you to know something. What happened today is not going to be forgotten. It's not going to be swept under the rug. It's not going to be reduced to a footnote in some corporate apology." His voice carried the weight of billions of dollars and decades of fighting for justice. $12 million. Policy changes across the airline industry. Criminal prosecution for the perpetrator. That's what's coming. And I give you my word. Every single one of you will be compensated for what you endured. He paused. "But more than that, I want you to know that my granddaughter is not unusual. She's not special in some superhuman way. She's special because she was raised to believe that silence in the face of injustice is agreement with that injustice. And any child raised that way will do what she did. Any adult who believes that will do what she did." He looked at each of them in turn. The question isn't whether Maya Richardson is extraordinary. The question is why more of us don't do what she did, why we stay silent, why we look away, why we let fear of consequences stop us from doing what we know is right. Dorothy Williams spoke up from her seat. "Because it's hard. Because speaking up costs you something." "Yes," Charles agreed, "it does. My granddaughter could have stayed in her first-class seat, finished her book, and walked off that plane without getting involved. Nobody would have blamed her. She's 9 years old. But she chose discomfort over silence. She chose to pay the cost." He put his arm around Maya. "I hope all of you will remember that. Not just what happened today, but why it happened. Because a little girl decided that 19 strangers' dignity mattered more than her own comfort." He turned and walked out, Maya at his side. Behind them, the room stayed silent. Outside the terminal, more news vans had arrived. Cameras pointed at every exit. Reporters shouted questions at anyone who emerged. Charles had anticipated this. A private car waited at a secure exit away from the media frenzy. He guided Maya toward it, shielding her from the few photographers who'd discovered their route. "Tomorrow," he told her as they walked, "this is going to be everywhere. Every news channel, every newspaper, every social media platform. Are you ready for that?" Maya thought about it. "I don't know." That's an honest answer. He opened the car door for her. "Here's what I want you to remember. You didn't do this for attention. You didn't do this for fame. You did this because it was right. Whatever happens next, whatever people say about you, good or bad, that truth doesn't change." Maya climbed into the car. What if people are mean? What if they say I shouldn't have gotten involved? Charles climbed in beside her, closing the door against the outside chaos. Some people will be mean. Some people will say exactly that. And you know what? They'll be wrong. And their opinions won't change what you did or why you did it. The car pulled away from the terminal. Maya watched the lights of the airport recede through the rear window. The planes, the news vans, the chaos she'd helped create. "Grandpa?" "Yes, baby girl?" "Is Patricia going to go to prison for a long time?" Charles was quiet for a moment. "Probably, yes. Federal civil rights violations carry serious penalties. And given the evidence, given the witnesses, given the fact that she admitted what she did on a recorded phone call..." He trailed off. "Do you feel sorry for her?" Maya asked. Another long pause. "I feel sorry for whoever made her that way. I feel sorry for whatever happened in her life that made her think it was acceptable to treat people as less than human. But do I feel sorry for the consequences she's facing? No, I don't. Actions have consequences. That's not cruelty. That's justice." Maya nodded slowly. Dorothy said she hopes Patricia finds peace someday. "Dorothy Williams is a better person than I am," Charles smiled slightly. 71 years old, served a banana like an animal, and her response is to hope her abuser finds peace. That's the kind of grace I'll never achieve. Maybe that's why she survived everything she survived. Charles looked at his granddaughter with something like wonder. Maybe it is. The car drove through the Los Angeles night, past office buildings and restaurants and homes where people had no idea what had just happened at LAX. No idea that a 9-year-old girl had just changed aviation history. No idea that tomorrow morning, every news channel in America would be talking about Flight DL-892 and the little girl who stood up. Maya leaned her head against her grandfather's shoulder. "Grandpa?" "Yes?" "I'm tired." He put his arm around her, pulled her close. "I know, baby girl. I know. You rest now. You've earned it." Maya closed her eyes. Behind her, at the airport, the interviews continued. The evidence was cataloged. The lawsuit was finalized. The media prepared for the biggest airline discrimination story in decades. But Maya didn't think about any of that. She thought about Dorothy's hands, warm and weathered, holding hers on the plane. She thought about Jennifer Chen, finding her courage when it mattered most. She thought about 19 bananas on 19 tray tables and the look on Patricia Lawson's face when she realized her world was ending. And then she didn't think about anything at all. She slept. Tomorrow, everything would change. But tonight, she was just a 9-year-old girl who'd done the right thing, exhausted from the weight of courage, safe in her grandfather's arms. The car drove on through the darkness. Maya woke up at 6:03 a.m. to the sound of her grandfather's voice downstairs. He was on the phone, multiple phones from the sound of it, speaking in that tone he used when something big was happening, the tone that meant business, the tone that meant war. She climbed out of bed, still wearing yesterday's clothes, and padded down the stairs of her grandfather's Los Angeles mansion. Charles stood in the living room, 3 television screens showing 3 different news channels. All of them displayed the same thing, her face. Maya froze on the bottom step. There she was on CNN, a photo from her school yearbook blown up to fill the entire screen. The headline underneath read, "9-year-old hero exposes racist flight attendant." On NBC, they were showing footage from the airport, shaky cell phone video of Patricia Lawson being led across the tarmac in handcuffs. The headline, "Airline employee arrested after serving bananas to black passengers." On Fox, a panel of commentators argued loudly. One of them held up a banana. The headline, "Flight DL-892, Racism at 30,000 feet." Charles turned and saw her standing there. He ended his call immediately. "Baby girl, you're awake." "That's me." Maya pointed at the screen. "That's my school picture." "I know, it's everywhere." Charles crossed to her and knelt down. "How are you feeling?" "Weird, really weird." "That's understandable." He took her hands. "Listen to me carefully. What happens today is going to be intense. Reporters are already outside the gates. They're going to want to talk to you. They're going to want interviews, statements, photos. You don't have to do any of that if you don't want to." Maya looked at the screens again. Her face, her name, over and over and over. "What do you think I should do?" Charles smiled. "I think that's your decision to make, not mine." Maya thought about it. She thought about Dorothy Williams, 71 years old, standing up on that plane despite decades of pain. She thought about Jennifer Chen, finally finding her voice when it mattered. She thought about the 19 passengers who deserved to have their story told. "I think people need to hear what happened," Maya said slowly. "Not about me, about them, about what Patricia did and why it was wrong." "Then we'll make that happen," Charles squeezed her hands. "But first, breakfast. You didn't eat dinner last night." Maya's stomach growled as if on cue. They both laughed. It felt good to laugh. It felt normal in a day that was already anything but. 30 minutes later, Maya sat at the kitchen table eating scrambled eggs while her grandfather fielded calls from lawyers, journalists, and airline executives. His assistant had compiled a list of interview requests. The stack of papers was 3 inches thick. Good Morning America wants her for tomorrow, the assistant reported. CNN wants an exclusive. The New York Times is offering a front-page feature. NBC, CBS, ABC, they're all calling. And that's just the American media. We've got requests from BBC, Al Jazeera, Der Spiegel. No interviews until after the arraignment, Charles said firmly. I want Patricia Lawson's face on every screen before Maya's. The story needs to be about what was done, not who stopped it. The arraignment is at 10 a.m., Charles checked his watch. 3 hours. Good. He looked at Maya. Do you want to be there? Maya put down her fork. At the arraignment, where Patricia will be? Yes, you have the right to be there, as a witness, as the person who reported the crime. But you don't have to go if it's too much. Maya thought about Patricia's face, the hatred, the dismissiveness, the way she'd looked at those passengers like they were less than human. I want to go. Are you sure? I want to see what happens to people who do what she did. Maya's voice was steady. I want to remember it. Charles nodded slowly. Then we'll go together. At 9:47 a.m., Maya walked into the federal courthouse in downtown Los Angeles. Security was intense. Metal detectors, bag checks, armed marshals at every door. The hallways were packed with reporters who'd been denied access to the courtroom, shouting questions at anyone who passed. Charles kept Maya close, one hand on her shoulder, guiding her through the chaos. His lawyers formed a protective barrier around them. Maya Richardson, can you tell us what happened on the plane? How does it feel to be called a hero? Did you know Patricia Lawson before the flight? What do you want to say to other children who witnessed discrimination? Maya kept her eyes forward, kept walking, didn't respond. Inside the courtroom, the atmosphere shifted. Quieter, more controlled, but the tension was thick enough to taste. The gallery was packed. Maya spotted familiar faces in the front rows. Dorothy Williams sat with her daughter, both of them clutching tissues. Marcus Thompson wore another perfect suit. Dr. Keisha Brooks had dark circles under her eyes, but sat ramrod straight. Pastor Mitchell held his Bible. Darnell Carter had a notepad, already scribbling observations. All 19 passengers had come, every single one of them. When Maya entered, Dorothy spotted her immediately. The elderly woman's face crumpled with emotion. She reached out and Maya crossed to her, accepting a fierce hug. You came, Dorothy whispered. You actually came. I said I would. I know, but Dorothy pulled back, wiping her eyes. You didn't have to. After everything yesterday, you could have stayed home. I needed to see this. Maya looked around the courtroom. We all did. Charles guided Maya to a seat directly behind the prosecution's table, the best view in the house. He wanted his granddaughter to see everything, to remember everything. At exactly 10 a.m., a side door opened. Patricia Lawson shuffled in. The transformation was shocking. Yesterday, even after crying and breaking down, she'd still carried traces of the composed flight attendant she'd been for 18 years. Now, she looked like a completely different person. Orange jumpsuit, handcuffs, ankle chains, hair that had come loose from its careful bun, hanging limp and unwashed around her face. Eyes red and swollen, shoulders slumped into feet. She looked broken, truly, completely broken. The courtroom fell absolutely silent as marshals led her to the defense table. Maya watched her sit down, watched her lawyer lean in to whisper something, watched Patricia shake her head, not really listening, not really present. Part of Maya felt something she didn't expect. Not sympathy, not exactly, but something. Dorothy leaned close. Don't feel bad for feeling complicated, child. Watching someone's life fall apart is supposed to feel complicated, even when they deserve it. Maya nodded, grateful that Dorothy understood. All rise, the bailiff announced, the Honorable Judge Margaret Chen presiding. Everyone stood. Judge Chen entered, a small woman with silver hair and sharp eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. She sat, arranged her papers, and looked out at the packed courtroom. Be seated. She waited for the rustling to stop. We're here today for the arraignment of Patricia Ann Lawson on federal charges of civil rights violations under Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Ms. Lawson, you've been informed of your rights? Patricia's lawyer stood. Yes, Your Honor. And how does the defendant plead? Another whispered conference at the defense table. Patricia's lawyer looked uncomfortable. Patricia herself stared at the table in front of her, not moving, not reacting. Your Honor, my client pleads not guilty. The gallery erupted. Order! Judge Chen banged her gavel. Order in this courtroom. Darnell Carter was on his feet. Not guilty? Are you kidding me? Sir, sit down immediately or you will be removed. Marcus Thompson pulled Darnell back into his seat. Easy, easy. This is just the beginning. Judge Chen waited for silence, then continued. The prosecution may present its case for bail. The federal prosecutor, a tall black woman named Angela Davis, rose from her seat. Your Honor, the prosecution requests that bail be denied entirely. On what grounds? Ms. Lawson has demonstrated a pattern of behavior indicating flight risk. She has significant savings, a valid passport, and family connections overseas. Additionally, the severity of the charges warrants holding her without bail. This was not a momentary lapse in judgment. This was premeditated, deliberate discrimination against 19 passengers based solely on the color of their skin. Patricia's lawyer jumped up. Objection, Your Honor. My client has no prior criminal record. She has been a model employee for 18 years. She has deep roots in her community and poses no flight risk whatsoever. Your Honor, Prosecutor Davis continued, we have recordings of the defendant admitting to the discrimination. We have testimony from her own colleague confirming that she gave specific instructions about which passengers should receive substandard service. We have photographic evidence, video evidence, and 19 witnesses who will testify to exactly what happened on that flight. She paused, letting her words sink in. This is not a case of he said, she said. This is a case where the evidence is overwhelming, and the defendant has already confessed. She is a danger to any community she's released into, and she should remain in custody until trial. Judge Chen turned to the defense. Response? Your Honor, my client made statements under extreme duress while being confronted by an angry mob on an airplane. Any so-called confession should be inadmissible. That's for trial, counselor. I'm asking about bail. The defense lawyer hesitated. We request bail be set at a reasonable amount. Mrs. Lawson is willing to surrender her passport and submit to electronic monitoring. Judge Chen was quiet for a long moment. The entire courtroom held its breath. Bail is set at $500,000. Another eruption from the gallery. This time, Judge Chen didn't bother with the gavel. She simply waited for the noise to die down. The defendant will surrender her passport immediately. She will be fitted with an electronic monitoring device and confined to her residence pending trial. Any violation of these terms will result in immediate remand to federal custody. Patricia's lawyer nodded. Understood, Your Honor. Trial date is set for, Judge Chen consulted her calendar, 3 months from today, March 15th. We're adjourned. She banged her gavel once and rose. All rise. The courtroom stood again as Judge Chen departed. The moment she was gone, chaos erupted. Reporters who'd snuck in despite restrictions rushed toward the defense table. Marshals moved to intercept them. Patricia's lawyer tried to shield his client from the onslaught of questions. Dorothy Williams grabbed Maya's hand. Did you hear that? $500,000 bail. March trial date. It's happening. It's really happening. She pleaded not guilty, Maya said. How can she plead not guilty when everyone knows what she did? Charles leaned down. It's a legal strategy, baby girl. Her lawyers probably told her to do it. Pleading guilty at arraignment means accepting whatever sentence the judge gives. Pleading not guilty gives them time to negotiate, to try for a plea deal, to look for technicalities. But she admitted it on the phone. I heard her. I know, and that recording will be used at trial. But until then, she has the right to plead however she wants. Marcus Thompson approached, shaking his head. Not guilty. 18 years of hiding her racism finally lets it out. gets caught on camera and recording, and she pleads not guilty. The audacity. Dr. Keisha Brooks laughed bitterly. Of course she does. People like her never think they did anything wrong. In her mind, she's probably still the victim somehow. Pastor Mitchell placed a calming hand on both their shoulders. Patience, my friends. Justice moves slowly, but it moves. She will face consequences. Today was just the first step. Darnell Carter had his phone out, already typing. First step or not, I'm posting everything. The world needs to know this woman looked a judge in the eye and said not guilty after what she did to us. Outside the courthouse, the media frenzy had intensified. News trucks lined the street. Helicopters circled overhead. A crowd had gathered, some holding signs supporting the passengers, others shouting angry slogans. Charles's security team formed a tight perimeter around Maya as they exited. But this time, Maya stopped. Wait. Charles looked down at her. What is it? I want to say something. To the reporters? Maya nodded. People need to hear what really happened, not just the headlines, not just the drama. They need to understand why this matters. Charles studied her face for a long moment. Then he smiled. Okay, but I'm standing right beside you. They walked toward the mass of reporters. Cameras swung toward them. Microphones appeared from every direction. Questions exploded like fireworks. Maya, what did you think of the arraignment? How do you feel about Patricia Lawson pleading not guilty? Do you have a message for other children? Maya raised her hand. The questions stopped. Somehow, impossibly, the crowd fell silent for this 9-year-old girl. My name is Maya Richardson. I'm 9 years old. Yesterday, I was on flight DL-892 from Atlanta to Los Angeles, and I watched a flight attendant serve bananas to 19 passengers because of the color of their skin. She paused. The cameras clicked and whirred. I didn't do anything special. I just said something when I saw something wrong. My grandfather taught me that silence when you see injustice is the same as agreeing with that injustice, so I couldn't stay silent. She looked directly into the nearest camera. But this isn't about me. This is about Dorothy Williams, who is 71 years old and survived Jim Crow and marched for civil rights. And yesterday, she was served a banana like she was an animal. This is about Dr. Keisha Brooks, who saves children's lives for a living and was told she only deserved a banana for her meal. This is about Pastor James Mitchell and Marcus Thompson and Darnell Carter and 14 other people whose only crime was being black on an airplane. Maya's voice grew stronger. Patricia Lawson pleaded not guilty today. She looked at a judge and said she didn't do anything wrong. But she did. She did something very wrong, and everyone on that plane knows it. Everyone who saw the evidence knows it. Everyone who heard her admit it on that phone call knows it. She took a breath. I'm 9 years old. I'm supposed to be thinking about school and friends and spelling bees. But yesterday, I had to stand up on an airplane and tell a grown woman that what she was doing was wrong, because none of the other grown-ups were stopping her. The crowd was absolutely silent now. So here's what I want to say to every kid watching this. If you see something wrong, say something. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter how scared you are. It doesn't matter if you're the only one speaking up. Your voice matters. Your courage matters. You matter. She stepped back. Charles put his arm around her shoulders. No more questions. Thank you. The security team moved them toward the waiting car. Behind them, reporters shouted follow-up questions. But Maya was done. She'd said what she needed to say. Inside the car, Charles pulled her close. That was perfect, baby girl. Absolutely perfect. I meant every word. I know you did. That's what made it perfect. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then let out a low whistle. What? Maya asked. Your statement just went live on every major network. It's already being shared thousands of times. He showed her the screen. You're trending worldwide, baby girl. #1 trending topic on every platform. Maya looked at the numbers climbing in real time. Millions of views, millions of shares, millions of people hearing her words. Is that good? It's powerful. Charles put the phone away. And power can be good or bad, depending on how you use it. You used yours to speak truth. That's the best kind of power there is. The car pulled away from the courthouse. Behind them, the crowd continued to grow. The cameras continued to roll. The story continued to spread. But Maya didn't look back. She was thinking about March 15th, about the trial that would determine Patricia Lawson's fate, about the 19 passengers who would have to testify about the worst flight of their lives. 3 months away. A lot could happen in 3 months. At 3:47 p.m. that afternoon, Charles received a phone call that changed everything. Maya was in the guest room trying to rest when she heard her grandfather's voice rise. "They want to what?" She crept to the door and listened. "That's impossible. We have recordings. We have witnesses. We have her own colleague's testimony." A pause. They can't be serious. Another pause. Longer this time. "Fine, set up the meeting. But they should know I'm not backing down, not 1 inch. Maya opened the door. "Grandpa, what's wrong?" Charles turned, phone still in hand, face tight with controlled anger. "Delta Connection's lawyers just reached out. They want to settle." "Isn't that good? That means they admit they were wrong." "It means they want to make this go away quietly." Charles shook his head. "They're offering $4 million total, split among all 19 passengers. That's barely $200,000 each. Is that not enough?" "Baby girl, what happened on that plane wasn't a $200,000 mistake. What happened was systematic discrimination, deliberately planned and executed by an employee of 18 years. The airline is responsible for who they hire, how they train them, and what they allow to happen on their flights." He started pacing. "They want to write a check and make this disappear. They want to avoid the trial, avoid the publicity, avoid having to explain how Patricia Lawson worked for them for 18 years without anyone noticing she was a racist." Maya sat down on the edge of the bed. "So what are you going to do?" Charles stopped pacing, looked at her. "What do you think I should do?" Maya thought about it, really thought about it. About Dorothy and Marcus and Keisha and all the others. About what they'd endured. About what they deserved. "I think you should fight," she said finally. "Not for the money, for the truth. So everyone knows exactly what happened and exactly who was responsible." Charles smiled. That fierce, proud smile he saved for moments like this. "That's exactly what I was thinking." He picked up his phone and dialed. "Sandra, it's Charles. Tell Delta Connection we decline their offer. We'll see them in court." He hung up. "Now," he said, turning back to Maya, "let's get ready, because this fight is just getting started." 3 months passed faster than Maya expected. She went back to school in Atlanta, back to spelling bees and homework and friends who looked at her differently now. Back to a life that was supposed to be normal, but never quite felt normal again. Everywhere she went, people recognized her. Teachers, parents, strangers in grocery stores. They pointed and whispered. Some approached her for photos, others just stared. The girl from the plane. The hero, the 9-year-old who took down a racist. Maya hated those labels. She wasn't a hero. She'd just done what anyone should have done, what everyone should have done, but nobody else had. That was the part that still bothered her. On March 14th, the night before the trial, Maya flew back to Los Angeles with her grandfather. The same airline, different flight, different crew. The flight attendants treated her like royalty. Extra snacks, extra smiles. Nervous attention that bordered on ridiculous. Maya understood why. Delta Connection couldn't afford another incident, not with the whole world watching. "They're scared of you," Charles observed, watching a flight attendant practically bow while offering Maya a second cookie. "They shouldn't be scared of me. They should just treat everyone the same." "That's the point, baby girl. That's exactly the point." They landed at 8:47 p.m. A car took them to Charles's mansion. Maya went straight to bed, but sleep wouldn't come. She lay staring at the ceiling, thinking about tomorrow. Patricia Lawson would be there. The woman who'd served bananas to 19 human beings because she thought they were less than human. Maya would have to sit in the same room with her, breathe the same air, watch her face as witnesses described what she'd done. Was she ready for that? She didn't know. At 6:15 a.m., Maya woke to the sound of her grandfather on the phone again. They did what? His voice was sharp, angry. When did this happen? Maya pulled on her robe and hurried downstairs. Charles stood in the living room, phone pressed to his ear, face dark with fury. Get everyone on a call, now. I want to know exactly what we're dealing with. He hung up and slammed the phone onto the table. Grandpa, what's wrong? He turned. His expression softened slightly when he saw her, but the anger was still there, burning beneath the surface. Patricia Lawson changed her plea. This morning, less than 4 hours before the trial was supposed to start. Maya's heart jumped. She's pleading guilty? No, Charles's jaw tightened. She's claiming mental illness. Her lawyers filed papers this morning arguing that she suffered a psychological break during the flight. They want the charges reduced. They want her sent to a treatment facility instead of prison. Maya felt like she'd been punched. But she planned it. Jennifer said she gave specific instructions. She organized the cart before the service even started. I know. She can't just say she was crazy and get away with it. She's trying to, baby girl. That's exactly what she's trying to do. Charles's phone rang again. He answered immediately. Sandra, tell me you have good news. He listened. His expression shifted from anger to something else. Something that looked almost like satisfaction. Perfect. Get it to the prosecutor immediately. I want it entered into evidence today. He hung up. What? Maya demanded. What is it? Patricia Lawson isn't as smart as she thinks she is. Charles allowed himself a small smile. Sandra's team found something. Social media posts. Years of them. Patricia had a private account under a fake name. She thought nobody would ever connect it to her. What kind of posts? Charles hesitated. Ugly ones, baby girl. Racist jokes, slurs, rants about black passengers on her flights. Years and years of documented hatred, going back to when she first started working for the airline. Maya felt sick. She was always like this. She was always like this. And now we can prove it. This wasn't a psychological break. This was who she's been her entire life. She just finally stopped hiding it. At 9:30 a.m., Maya walked into the federal courthouse for the second time. The security was even more intense than before. The crowd outside had tripled. Protesters on both sides shouted at each other across police barriers. News crews from around the world jockeyed for position. Inside the courtroom, Maya took her seat behind the prosecution's table. Dorothy Williams sat beside her, holding her hand like she had on the plane. Whatever happens today, Dorothy whispered, we've already won. You know that, right? How have we won if she doesn't go to prison? Because the world knows. Because her name is mud. Because she'll never work again. Never live in peace again. Never forget what she did. Prison or not, her life is over. Maya wanted to believe that, but it didn't feel like enough. At exactly 10 a.m., Judge Chen entered. All rise. Everyone stood. Judge Chen took her seat, arranged her papers, and looked out at the packed courtroom with an expression that could have been carved from stone. Before we begin jury selection, I understand the defense has filed new motions this morning. Mr. Wallace, explain yourself. Patricia's lawyer stood. He was a thin man with nervous eyes and a voice that didn't quite carry the confidence he was trying to project. Your Honor, new evidence has come to light regarding my client's mental state at the time of the incident. We're requesting a psychological evaluation and arguing that the charges should be reconsidered in light of her diminished capacity. Judge Chen's expression didn't change. Mrs. Davis? Prosecutor Davis rose. Your Honor, the prosecution strenuously objects. This is a transparent, last-minute attempt to avoid accountability. Furthermore, we have new evidence of our own that directly contradicts the defense's claims of sudden psychological impairment. What evidence? Social media posts, Your Honor. Years of documented racist statements made by the defendant under a pseudonym. These posts prove that the defendant's actions on Flight DL-892 were not a sudden break from reality, but rather the culmination of long-held beliefs she had previously hidden. The courtroom buzzed. Judge Chen banged her gavel. Order! Mr. Wallace, were you aware of these posts? Patricia's lawyer looked like he wanted to disappear. Your Honor, my client assured me that she had no such history. Your client lied to you. Judge Chen's voice was flat. The motion for psychological evaluation is denied. The defense's attempt to reclassify this case is denied. We will proceed with jury selection as scheduled. Maya felt Dorothy squeeze her hand. Hard. That's the first win, Dorothy whispered, but it's not the last. Jury selection took 4 hours. Prosecutor Davis was methodical, precise. She rejected anyone who seemed sympathetic to the airline industry, anyone who hesitated when asked about racial discrimination, anyone whose body language suggested discomfort with the case. Patricia's lawyer tried to stack the jury with people who might give his client the benefit of the doubt, but the pool was limited. The case was too famous. Everyone had already seen the evidence. Everyone had already formed opinions. In the end, 12 jurors were seated, 8 women, 4 men. 3 black jurors, 2 Hispanic, 1 Asian, 6 white, a cross-section of America. Judge Chen addressed them with the gravity the moment deserved. Ladies and gentlemen, you have been selected to serve on a jury in a case that has received significant public attention. I must instruct you to base your verdict solely on the evidence presented in this courtroom, not on anything you may have seen or heard in the media. Can each of you commit to that standard? 12 heads nodded. Then we'll begin opening statements tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Court is adjourned. The gavel fell. Maya let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. 1 day down, many more to go. That night, Charles hosted a dinner for all 19 passengers and their families. They gathered in his mansion's dining room, a space that could comfortably seat 50. Tonight, it was packed with people whose lives had been changed by one flight attendant, one moment of hatred. Dorothy Williams sat at Maya's right side. She hadn't let the girl out of her sight all day. You doing okay, child? I'm nervous about tomorrow, about testifying. You're going to be fine, Dorothy patted her hand. You just tell the truth. That's all you have to do. The truth is powerful enough. Across the table, Marcus Thompson raised his glass. I want to propose a toast to Charles Richardson, who gave us the resources to fight. To Angela Davis, who's prosecuting this case like her life depends on it. And most importantly, to Maya Richardson, who had the courage to speak up when the rest of us were too stunned to move. Glasses raised around the table. To Maya. Maya felt her face flush. You all would have spoken up eventually. You were already fighting back when I got there. We were yelling, Darnell Carter corrected. There's a difference between yelling and acting. You acted. You called your grandfather. You made things happen. Dr. Keisha Brooks nodded. I've thought about it a lot over these 3 months. What would have happened if you hadn't been on that flight? Patricia would have gotten away with it. We would have filed complaints. The airline would have apologized and given us vouchers. And nothing would have changed. Pastor Mitchell spoke up from the end of the table. God put you on that plane for a reason, child. I believe that with all my heart. You were exactly where you needed to be, exactly when you needed to be there. Maya didn't know how to respond to that. She wasn't sure she believed in divine plans, but she believed in doing the right thing. Maybe that was enough. Charles stood, commanding the room's attention without effort. Tomorrow, the prosecution begins presenting its case. Several of you will be called to testify over the coming days. I want you to know that my legal team will support you every step of the way. If you need anything at all, you ask for it. He paused. I also want you to know that whatever happens in that courtroom, the civil case is proceeding independently. Delta Connection's initial settlement offer was an insult. We rejected it. They've since increased their offer to $8 million. Murmurs around the table. I've rejected that as well. The murmurs grew louder. This isn't about money, Charles continued. This is about accountability. This is about making sure that what happened to you never happens to anyone else. The only settlement I'll accept is one that includes real policy changes, real oversight, and real consequences for the airline that allowed Patricia Lawson to work for them for 18 years without catching what she was. Marcus Thompson nodded slowly. I'm with you, whatever it takes. Dorothy Williams raised her glass again. To justice, real justice, not just a check. To justice, everyone echoed. March 15th, day 1 of testimony, 9 a.m. Prosecutor Angela Davis stood before the jury with the confidence of someone who knew she was holding a winning hand. Ladies and gentlemen, what you're about to hear is not complicated. It's not ambiguous. It's not open to interpretation. On December 15th of last year, Patricia Lawson made a choice. She looked at 19 passengers on flight DL-892 and decided, based solely on the color of their skin, that they did not deserve to be treated as human beings. She walked slowly along the jury box. You will hear testimony from those 19 passengers. You will see photographs of the bananas they were served, while white passengers ate full meals. You will hear a recording of the defendant admitting what she did, and you will hear from Jennifer Chen, the defendant's own colleague, who will testify that Patricia Lawson gave her specific instructions about which passengers should receive inferior service. She stopped, facing the jury directly. The defense will try to confuse you. They'll talk about inventory problems and allocation issues and psychological breaks. But the evidence will show you the truth. This was not a mistake. This was not a breakdown. This was racism, deliberate and premeditated. And Patricia Lawson must be held accountable. She sat down. Patricia's lawyer rose. His opening statement was a disaster. He stumbled over his words. He contradicted himself twice. He tried to paint Patricia as a victim of circumstances, but the argument fell flat against the weight of evidence everyone knew was coming. When he finally sat down, Maya saw several jurors exchange glances. Not good glances. The kind of glances that said they'd already made up their minds. The first witness was Jennifer Chen. She walked to the stand with quiet dignity. Gone was the nervous, trembling woman from the plane. 3 months of therapy and public support had transformed her. She looked directly at Patricia as she was sworn in. Patricia couldn't meet her eyes. Ms. Chen, Prosecutor Davis began, can you describe your working relationship with the defendant? Patricia was my supervisor. I'd worked under her for 2 years. She was demanding, but professional. I never saw her act inappropriately. Until that day. Tell us about that day. Jennifer took a breath. Before we started the economy service, Patricia pulled me aside. She said she'd handle the meal distribution and I should just pour drinks. I thought that was strange because we usually worked together, but she was senior, so I didn't question it. What happened next? I watched her serve bananas to passengers, just bananas, nothing else. And I noticed, Jennifer's voice wavered. I noticed she was only doing it to certain passengers. Which passengers? Black passengers. The words hung in the air. Every black passenger in economy received a banana. Every white passenger received a full meal. Patricia's lawyer objected. Speculation. The witness cannot know what the defendant was thinking. Your Honor, Davis countered, the witness is describing her direct observations. Overruled. Continue, Ms. Chen. Jennifer straightened. When passengers started complaining, Patricia told them it was airline policy, limited inventory, supply chain issues. But I could see the cart. There were plenty of meals. She just wasn't serving them. Why didn't you speak up immediately? Jennifer's face crumpled slightly. I was scared. Patricia had power over my career. I thought if I said something, I'd be fired. I'd be blacklisted. I'd never work again. She looked at the jury. I'm ashamed I stayed silent as long as I did. I should have spoken up the moment I saw what was happening. What made you finally speak up? A little girl. Jennifer's eyes found Maya in the gallery. A 9-year-old girl walked into economy class and started asking questions. She wasn't scared. She wasn't worried about her career or her reputation. She just saw something wrong, and she said so. Tears streamed down Jennifer's face. That child had more courage than I did, more courage than any adult on that plane. And I thought, if a 9-year-old can speak up, what's my excuse? The courtroom was absolutely silent. I told the truth. I told everyone what Patricia had instructed me to do, and I've never regretted it, not for 1 second. Prosecutor Davis nodded. Thank you, Ms. Chen. No further questions. Patricia's lawyer approached the witness stand for cross-examination. His strategy was immediately clear: attack Jennifer's credibility. Ms. Chen, isn't it true that you were up for promotion before this incident? Yes. And isn't it true that Patricia Lawson was the one who would decide whether you received that promotion? Yes. So you had a motive to discredit her, didn't you? To eliminate your competition. Jennifer's eyes hardened. I didn't discredit her. I told the truth about what she did. There's a difference. But you admit you had a professional rivalry with the defendant. I admit she was my supervisor. I admit she controlled my career advancement. But I didn't make up what I saw. I didn't invent the bananas on those tray tables. I didn't fabricate 19 witnesses who can confirm exactly what happened. No further questions. The lawyer sat down quickly. He knew he'd lost that exchange. The second witness was Dorothy Williams. She walked to the stand slowly, leaning on her cane, but her eyes were sharp and her voice was strong. State your name for the record. Dorothy Mae Williams. I'm 71 years old, retired school teacher, 43 years in the classroom, never missed a day of work in my life. Ms. Williams, can you describe what happened when the defendant served you on flight DL892? Dorothy looked directly at Patricia. That woman walked up to my seat, dropped a banana on my tray like she was feeding a monkey at the zoo, and said, "Enjoy your meal." Then she walked away. How did that make you feel? How did it make me feel? Dorothy's voice rose. I survived Jim Crow, honey. I watched my father get beaten for looking at a white woman too long. I marched in Birmingham when dogs and fire hoses were turned on children. I thought those days were behind us. I thought my grandchildren wouldn't have to live through what I lived through. She paused, collecting herself. And then I'm on an airplane in 2024, and a white woman hands me a banana because she thinks that's all I deserve. Because she looks at my skin and sees an animal instead of a person. Tears streamed down her face, but her voice didn't waver. So how did it make me feel? It made me feel like 60 years of progress was a lie. It made me feel like nothing had changed. It made me feel like I was 12 years old again, being told I couldn't drink from the nice water fountain because I wasn't the right color. The jury was riveted. Several jurors were crying. But you know what else it made me feel? Dorothy leaned forward. Angry. Fighting angry. The same anger that made me march in Birmingham. The same anger that made me spend 43 years teaching children that they matter, that they're valuable, that the color of their skin doesn't define their worth. She pointed at Patricia. That woman tried to take my dignity, but she failed. Because my dignity doesn't come from a meal tray. My dignity comes from who I am and what I've survived. And I've survived a lot worse than Patricia Lawson. Prosecutor Davis let the moment breathe. No further questions, Your Honor. Patricia's lawyer declined to cross-examine. Smart move. There was no winning against Dorothy Williams. By 4:30 p.m., 4 more witnesses had testified. Marcus Thompson described the humiliation of being served a banana in front of white colleagues on the same flight. Dr. Keisha Brooks broke down crying while explaining how she'd saved 3 children's lives that week, only to be treated like an animal on her way to a medical conference. Pastor Mitchell spoke about faith and forgiveness, but made clear that forgiveness didn't mean avoiding consequences. And Darnell Carter, ever the fighter, produced his phone and played videos he'd recorded on the plane. The jury watched in real time as Patricia served bananas to black passengers. They heard her dismissive responses to complaints. They saw the evidence with their own eyes. When court adjourned for the day, Patricia Lawson looked smaller than she had that morning. Her lawyer looked defeated. And Maya Richardson sat in the gallery, watching justice unfold, one testimony at a time. That night, Charles took Maya out to dinner, just the 2 of them. "You've been quiet," he observed. "What's on your mind?" Maya pushed food around her plate. "I keep thinking about Patricia, about how she hid who she was for 18 years. How many other flights did she work? How many other passengers did she treat badly when nobody was watching? Probably a lot. And nobody ever caught her. Nobody ever reported her. Nobody ever said anything." No, Charles set down his fork. Nobody did. Why? Why did it take a 9-year-old to finally stop her? Charles was quiet for a long moment. Because most people are afraid, baby girl. Afraid of making waves. Afraid of being wrong. Afraid of consequences. They see something bad and they convince themselves it's not their problem. They tell themselves someone else will handle it. They look away. But looking away doesn't make it stop. No, it just makes it easier for the bad things to continue. Maya thought about that. I don't want to be someone who looks away. You're not. Charles reached across the table and squeezed her hand. You proved that on flight DL 892, and you're proving it every day you show up to that courtroom. You're proving it right now by asking these questions, by refusing to let this become just another headline that fades away. Maya met his eyes. Tomorrow, they might call me to testify. They might. I'm scared. That's okay. Courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is doing the right thing, even when you're afraid. Maya nodded slowly. I can do that. Charles smiled. I know you can, baby girl. I know you can. March 16th, day 2 of testimony. 9 a.m. Maya woke up with her stomach in knots. Today was her day. Today she would face Patricia Lawson in court and tell the world exactly what she saw. Charles knocked on her door at 7:30 a.m. You ready, baby girl? Maya looked at herself in the mirror. Same braids, same determined eyes, same 9-year-old girl who had stood up on an airplane seat 4 months ago and refused to stay silent. I'm ready. The drive to the courthouse felt longer than before. Maya watched the city pass by through tinted windows, thinking about what she would say, thinking about how she would say it, thinking about Patricia's face when their eyes finally met across the courtroom. Remember, Charles said as they pulled up to the security entrance, just tell the truth. That's all you have to do. The truth is the most powerful weapon we have. Maya nodded. I know, Grandpa. And don't let their lawyer rattle you. He's going to try to confuse you, make you doubt yourself. That's his job. Your job is to stay calm and stick to what you know. I won't let him rattle me. Charles smiled and squeezed her hand. That's my girl. Inside the courtroom, the gallery was packed tighter than any previous day. Word had spread that the 9-year-old witness would testify. Every seat was filled. Every eye was waiting. Maya took her place behind the prosecution's table. Dorothy Williams sat beside her, same as always. I'll be right here the whole time, Dorothy whispered. Every second. You look at me if you need strength. Maya nodded, grateful for the anchor. At 9:15 a.m., Prosecutor Davis stood. The prosecution calls Maya Richardson to the stand. Maya rose. Her legs felt unsteady, but she walked forward anyway. Past the prosecution table, past the defense table where Patricia sat frozen, up to the witness stand where a bailiff waited with a Bible. Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. Please be seated. Maya sat. The chair was too big for her. Her feet didn't quite reach the floor, but her voice was steady when she stated her name for the record. Maya Christine Richardson. I'm 9 years old. I live in Atlanta, Georgia. Prosecutor Davis approached with a gentle smile. Maya, I know this is difficult. Take your time. Can you tell the jury about what happened on flight DL 892? Maya took a breath, looked at the jury, looked at Dorothy, looked at her grandfather in the gallery. Then she looked at Patricia Lawson. Their eyes met for the first time since the plane. Patricia's face was pale. Her eyes were red. She looked like a woman who hadn't slept in months. But beneath the exhaustion, Maya saw something else, something that looked like hatred. Patricia still hated her, after everything. After all the evidence and testimony and consequences, she still hated the little girl who had exposed her. Good, Maya thought. Let her hate me. I'm not afraid of her. I was flying from Atlanta to Los Angeles, Maya began. I was in first class with my cousin Derek. He was asleep. I heard shouting coming from the economy cabin, so I went to see what was happening. What did you see when you entered economy class? I saw bananas. Single bananas on the tray tables of black passengers. Every single one. And I saw full meals on the tray tables of white passengers. How many black passengers had bananas? 19, I counted. And how many white passengers had full meals? Everyone else. I counted those too. What did you do when you saw this? Maya's voice strengthened. I walked up to the flight attendant, Patricia Lawson. I asked her why she gave those passengers bananas. What did she say? She told me it was airline policy, limited inventory. She told me to go back to first class and mind my own business. Did you believe her? No, Maya shook her head firmly. I walked past the galley on my way into economy. I saw 17 meal trays in the heated compartment. Plenty of food. She just wasn't giving it to black passengers. The jury was riveted. Several leaned forward in their seats. What happened next? I confronted her, told her I'd seen the extra meals, told her my grandfather owned part of the airline. She got scared then, really scared. And then? I called my grandfather, put him on speakerphone so everyone could hear. He asked Patricia directly if she'd served bananas only to black passengers, and she admitted it. She admitted it? Yes, ma'am. She said, there may have been some discrepancy in distribution. That was her way of saying yes, without really saying yes. Prosecutor Davis let the words hang in the air. No further questions, Your Honor. Patricia's lawyer rose for cross-examination. His hands were shaking slightly. Maya noticed. Good. Let him be scared, too. Miss Richardson, you're 9 years old, correct? Yes, sir. And you were traveling without your parents? I was with my cousin, who was asleep. Yes. So you were essentially unsupervised. Objection, Davis interrupted. Relevance? I'll allow it, Judge Chen said, but get to your point, counselor. The lawyer nodded. Miss Richardson, isn't it possible that you misunderstood what you saw? That as a child you misinterpreted the situation? Maya felt anger rise in her chest, but she kept her voice calm. I'm 9 years old, sir, not blind. I know what a banana looks like. I know what a meal tray looks like. And I know the difference between giving one to certain people and not giving it to others. But you couldn't possibly know what was in my client's mind. You couldn't know her intentions. I know she admitted it. I know she told Jennifer Chen which passengers to skip. I know she had enough food for everyone and chose not to serve it. Maya looked directly at the jury. I don't need to read minds. I just need eyes. The lawyer changed tactics. Your grandfather is Charles Richardson, correct? The billionaire? The man suing the airline for $12 million? Yes. So you have a financial interest in the outcome of this case? No, sir. I'm 9. I don't get any money. But your family does. My grandfather does, and he's giving most of it to the passengers who were discriminated against. The lawyer paused. That clearly wasn't the answer he expected. You're a very articulate child, Miss Richardson. Very composed. Almost rehearsed. Objection! Davis was on her feet. Counsel is badgering the witness. Sustained. Watch yourself, counselor. He tried again. Miss Richardson, did anyone tell you what to say today? Did you practice this testimony? Maya looked at him steadily. My grandfather told me to tell the truth. That's what I'm doing. I don't need to practice the truth. I just need to remember it. The lawyer opened his mouth, closed it, looked at Judge Chen. No further questions. Maya stepped down from the witness stand. Her legs were shaking now, but she walked steadily back to her seat. Dorothy grabbed her hand the moment she sat down. You did it, child. You did it perfectly. Maya let out a breath she'd been holding for what felt like hours. Is it over? For you, yes. Now we wait for the verdict. The prosecution rested its case that afternoon. The defense presented a half-hearted case built on character witnesses who couldn't explain away the evidence, and psychological experts whose testimony was dismantled under cross-examination. 3 days later, on March 19th, the jury began deliberations. Maya sat in her grandfather's mansion, waiting. Dorothy Williams waited with her. So did Marcus Thompson and Dr. Keisha Brooks and Pastor Mitchell and Darnell Carter. All 19 passengers had gathered, united by the shared experience that had changed their lives. The call came at 4:47 p.m. Verdict's in, Charles announced. They want us back at the courthouse. The drive felt endless. Maya's heart pounded so hard she could hear it in her ears. Dorothy held her hand. Neither of them spoke. At 5:30 p.m., they filed back into the courtroom. Patricia Lawson was already seated at the defense table. She looked smaller than before, shrunken, like the weight of everything had finally crushed her. Judge Chen entered. Everyone rose. Everyone sat. "I understand the jury has reached a verdict?" The foreperson stood, a middle-aged black woman with gray-streaked hair and steady hands. "We have, Your Honor. On the charge of violating Title VI of the Civil Rights Act through discriminatory treatment of passengers based on race, how does the jury find?" The foreperson looked directly at Patricia Lawson. "Guilty." The gallery erupted. Maya felt Dorothy's arms wrap around her, felt tears streaming down her own face, felt the weight of 4 months of waiting finally lift from her shoulders. Patricia Lawson collapsed at the defense table. Her lawyer tried to steady her. She pushed him away. "Order!" Judge Chen banged her gavel. "Order in this court!" The noise subsided slowly. People were crying, hugging. Some were praying. Judge Chen continued. "On the charge of conspiracy to deprive civil rights, how does the jury find?" "Guilty!" Another eruption, another gavel. "On the charge of creating a hostile environment resulting in emotional distress, how does the jury find?" "Guilty!" Patricia was sobbing now. Deep, ugly sounds that echoed through the courtroom. "The defendant will be remanded to custody pending sentencing. Sentencing will take place in 30 days. Judge Chen looked at Patricia with an expression that might have been pity, might have been contempt. Court is adjourned. The gavel fell one final time. Federal marshals approached Patricia. She didn't resist as they cuffed her hands behind her back, didn't speak as they led her toward the side door. But as she passed the gallery, she stopped, looked at Maya. Their eyes met one last time. Patricia's lips moved. Maya couldn't hear the words, but she could read them. "You destroyed me." Maya held her gaze. "No," she said quietly. "You destroyed yourself. I just made sure people knew." The marshals pulled Patricia forward, the door closed behind her, and she was gone. 6 weeks later, Patricia Lawson was sentenced to 4 years in federal prison. The courtroom was packed again for the sentencing hearing. The 19 passengers sat in the front rows. Maya sat with her grandfather directly behind them. Judge Chen delivered her sentence with the gravity it deserved. "Patricia Lawson, you had a choice. For 18 years, you had the choice to treat every passenger with dignity and respect. Instead, you chose hatred. You chose cruelty. You chose to look at 19 human beings and decide they were less than human." She paused. "The sentence I impose today is not just punishment for your actions. It's a message that discrimination will not be tolerated, that racism has consequences, that no one, no matter how long they've hidden their hatred, is above the law." Patricia stood motionless. The fight had gone out of her completely. "Patricia Ann Lawson, I sentence you to 4 years in federal prison, followed by 3 years of supervised release. You will pay restitution to each victim as determined by the civil proceedings. And you will complete 500 hours of community service with civil rights organizations upon your release." The gavel fell. Court is adjourned. Patricia was led away without a word, without a look, without anything. It was over. 2 months later, the civil case settled. Delta Connection Airlines agreed to pay $12 million. Each of the 19 passengers received $400,000 in compensation. The remaining funds went to establishing a new civil rights oversight committee within the airline industry. But the money wasn't the real victory. The real victory was the policy changes. Mandatory anti-discrimination training for all airline employees. Independent oversight boards with power to investigate complaints. Zero tolerance policies for any form of racial discrimination. Annual public reporting on discrimination incidents and how they were handled. Charles Richardson made sure every promise was enforceable. Made sure there were consequences for breaking them. Made sure that what happened on Flight DL-892 could never happen again. 1 year after the incident, Maya Richardson turned 10. Her grandfather threw her a birthday party at his Atlanta estate. The guest list was unusual for a child's birthday. Dorothy Williams came with her entire family. Marcus Thompson brought his 7-year-old daughter, who had become Maya's pen pal. Dr. Keisha Brooks, now chief of pediatric surgery at Emory, arrived with a gift wrapped in surgical paper as a joke. Pastor Mitchell brought a Bible he'd personally inscribed. Darnell Carter showed up with the first scholarship check from the Maya Richardson Courage Fund. 19 passengers, 19 families, united forever by a flight that had changed all their lives. After the cake and presents, Dorothy pulled Maya aside. "I have something for you, child. Something special." She pressed a small box into Maya's hands. Maya opened it. Inside was a pin, a small golden banana with a broken chain wrapped around it. "I had it made," Dorothy explained, "for all of us. It's our symbol now. The banana they tried to humiliate us with, broken free from hatred." Maya turned the pin over in her hands. On the back was an inscription, "Courage over Silence, Flight DL892, December 15th, 2024. It's beautiful. Wear it with pride, child. You earned it. Maya pinned it to her dress, right over her heart. Charles approached them, 2 glasses of punch in hand. "What's this, a secret meeting?" Dorothy laughed. "Just giving your granddaughter her real birthday present, the one that matters." Charles looked at the pin. His eyes glistened. "That's perfect. Absolutely perfect." He knelt down to Maya's level, same as he'd done so many times before. "You know what you did, don't you? You know how much you changed?" Maya shrugged. "I just told the truth." "You did more than that." Charles put his hands on her shoulders. "You showed the world that one person can make a difference, that age doesn't determine courage, that speaking up matters, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard." "I was scared, Grandpa. The whole time, I was scared." "I know, and you did it anyway. That's what courage is, not the absence of fear, the choice to act despite fear." Maya looked around at the party, at the passengers who'd become family, at the children playing together, black and white and brown, not caring about anything except having fun. "Do you think things will really change?" she asked. "Not just for airlines, for everything?" Charles was quiet for a moment. "I think change happens slowly, one person at a time, one choice at a time, one act of courage at a time." He smiled. "But I also think that every movement, every revolution, every transformation in history started with someone who refused to stay silent, someone who saw something wrong and said something." He stood up. "Today, you're 10 years old. You have your whole life ahead of you, and whatever you choose to do with that life, you'll do it knowing that you already changed the world once, at 9 years old, on an airplane, with nothing but your voice and your courage." Maya felt tears prick her eyes. "I love you, Grandpa." "I love you too, baby girl, more than you'll ever know." Dorothy Williams raised her glass of punch. "Can I have everyone's attention?" The party fell quiet. All eyes turned to the elderly woman who had survived Jim Crow and marches and fire hoses and had refused to let a banana break her spirit. "1 year ago, I was on a plane. A woman looked at my face and decided I wasn't human. She gave me a banana and told me to enjoy my meal." Her voice carried across the gathering. "I've lived 72 years now. I've seen hatred in every form it takes. I've seen people broken by it. I've seen people destroyed by it. And I've seen people rise above it." She looked at Maya. This child rose above it, not just for herself, for all of us, for everyone who's ever been told they're less than, for everyone who's ever been served a banana when they deserved a feast. Dorothy raised her glass higher. "To Maya Richardson, who taught an old woman that hope isn't dead, that courage isn't gone, that the next generation is ready to carry the torch we've been holding for so long." Everyone raised their glasses. "To Maya, to courage, to justice." Maya stood there, surrounded by love, surrounded by family she'd gained through the strangest circumstances, surrounded by proof that one person's choice could ripple out and change everything. She thought about Patricia Lawson, sitting in a federal prison cell facing 3 more years behind bars. She didn't feel satisfaction. She didn't feel vengeance. She felt something closer to sadness. Sadness that Patricia had chosen hatred when she could have chosen love. Sadness that it had taken federal charges and prison time to stop her. Sadness that there were probably other Patricias out there, still hiding, still waiting for their moment to reveal who they really were. But Maya also felt hope. Hope that every time someone chose courage over silence, the world got a little better. Hope that every time someone stood up against injustice, the injustice got a little weaker. Hope that every 9-year-old watching her story would learn the same lesson she'd learned. Your voice matters. Your courage matters. You matter, even when you're small, even when you're scared, even when you're the only one speaking up. Especially then. Maya looked at her grandfather, at Dorothy, at all the passengers who had become her extended family, at the pin over her heart, the broken banana that symbolized their triumph, and she smiled, because this was just the beginning. She was 10 years old now. She had her whole life ahead of her, and if she could change the world at 9, standing on an airplane seat with nothing but her voice, imagine what she could do with a lifetime of courage. The party continued around her, laughter and music and joy filling the air. The Atlanta evening warm and gentle and full of promise. Dorothy Williams took her hand. "What are you thinking about, child?" Maya squeezed back. "I'm thinking about the future." "Good thoughts?" "The best thoughts." Maya looked up at her. "I'm thinking about all the things I'm going to change, all the wrongs I'm going to right, all the people I'm going to help." Dorothy's eyes glistened with tears of pride. "Then God help anyone who tries to stop you." Maya laughed, a real laugh, a joyful laugh, the laugh of a child who had stared down hatred and won. "God help them," she agreed, "because I'm just getting started." The sun set over Atlanta, painting the sky in shades of gold and orange and pink. A perfect ending to a perfect day. A perfect ending to a story that had started with hatred and ended with hope. But Maya Richardson knew the truth. This wasn't an ending at all. It was a beginning. And somewhere out there, on planes and trains and buses and streets, in schools and offices and homes, people were watching her story, learning from her example, finding their own courage. One voice at a time, one choice at a time, one act of bravery at a time. The world was changing, and it all started with a 9-year-old girl who refused to stay silent when silence would have been easier, who chose discomfort over comfort, who chose truth over safety, who chose courage over fear. That is the power of one voice raised against injustice. That is the legacy of Maya Richardson. That is the lesson of Flight DL-892. And that is why, no matter how dark the world seems, no matter how powerful the forces of hatred appear, there is always hope. Because somewhere, right now, a child is watching, a child is learning, a child is finding their voice. And when they speak up, the world will listen, just like it listened to Maya, just like it always listens to courage.